It started on a Thursday night, just as millions of Americans were settling in for their evening news. Rachel Maddow opened her MSNBC show with what she called exclusive footage, a grainy video allegedly showing Karoline Leavitt in a closed-door donor meeting, making inflammatory statements that contradicted everything she had built her public platform on. The clip was short, just 48 seconds, but it was enough. Enough to spark outrage, enough to trend within minutes under the hashtag #JossLeavittExposed, and enough for anchors across other networks to repeat Maddow's dramatic voiceover. This is who she really is. What Rachel didn't say was where the clip had come from. There was no producer credit, no verification log, no journalist attribution. It just appeared. And in a media climate thirsty for scandal, that was all it took. Karoline was in the middle of a school visit in North Carolina when the news hit her phone. Aide after aide came up to her, their faces pale. One whispered, "They're saying you hate your own base." She didn't flinch. She asked to see the clip, and when she did, she didn't scream. She didn't call her lawyers. She just stared at the screen and said one sentence. "That's not real, and I'm going to prove it." Because Karoline knew something the others didn't. She had never been in that room. She had never worn the suit they claimed she wore in the clip. And the words that came out of that AI-generated mouth? They weren't hers, not even close. The battle line had been drawn. Rachel had made her move. Now it was Karoline's turn. Karoline didn't return to her hotel that night. She went straight to a private tech lab in Charlotte, an off-the-record operation where former cybersecurity experts and AI ethicists now worked in the shadows, often helping whistleblowers and political targets trace digital manipulation. These weren't government employees. They weren't corporate. They were truth-tellers. And that's exactly what Karoline needed. "Find me the original," she told them. "Not just where it was posted. I want to know where it was created." The team went to work. They ran the Maddow clip through dozens of filters. Voice pattern analysis, pixel anomalies, lip sync irregularities, metadata extraction. Within an hour, they confirmed what Karoline already knew. It was a deepfake. But this wasn't amateur work. The synthetic voice was trained on hours of Karoline's interviews. The lighting in the fake donor room was matched to real venues she'd spoken at. Whoever made this video had access to top-tier generative AI tools and likely government-grade rendering software. The fingerprints weren't technical. They were human. Someone had scripted this. Someone had fed it into a machine. Someone had built a fake version of Karoline to destroy the real one. At 2:12 a.m., the team traced the IP trail, not just to a Reddit account where the video had first been posted anonymously, but back to a media group subcontractor that had previously worked with MSNBC. That subcontractor had recently uploaded training data to a cloud rendering farm flagged by multiple AI watchdog groups. Karoline stared at the screen, her arms folded tightly. "Rachel didn't make the video," she said calmly, "but she aired it without asking if it was real." By morning, Karoline was on a flight to New York. She didn't call MSNBC. She didn't send a cease and desist. She called one person, a former broadcast technician who had once worked inside Maddow's production team and who, a year ago, had reached out to Karoline quietly after resigning. "I told you they'd try this," the voice said when Karoline called. "They did the same thing to someone else, but no one fought back." Karoline's reply was simple. "I'm not someone else. I'm coming in person." Karoline didn't arrive at 30 Rockefeller Plaza with a lawyer or a PR team. She walked in alone. No press, no announcement, no advance notice. The receptionist looked up, startled. "Do you have an appointment?" Karoline smiled, cool and polite. "Nope, but I'm sure someone will want to speak to me once they see this." She held up a hard drive wrapped in a black leather case, evidence, time-stamped, and verified by independent AI forensics labs. Within minutes, security was hovering. Karoline was firm but composed. "I'm not here to cause a scene," she said. "I'm here because Rachel Maddow broadcast a synthetic video designed to assassinate my character, and I have the original proof that it's fake. If you think I'm leaving until I've shown that to your legal department, you're mistaken." The tension in the air crackled. Producers were whispering behind glass partitions. Phones were ringing. Rachel wasn't in the building. She was scheduled to host remotely from DC that evening. But Karoline didn't need Rachel to be there. She needed someone who could open a door, and one door was about to swing wide open. A woman in a navy blazer emerged from the hallway. "I'm head of editorial standards. Come with me." Karoline followed her into a private screening room where a monitor sat, blank and waiting. She plugged in the drive and played the clip Rachel had aired the night before, then paused it mid-sentence. "Watch the mouth," Karoline said. "It's off by 2 frames. She layered it with the real audio from the time-stamped speech she had actually given that day. It wasn't even remotely similar. Next, she brought up the rendering logs, the ones that traced back to the video's AI engine, showing input files that didn't match any public footage. "This is a fabrication," she said. "Someone made this. You aired it, and your viewers think it's real." The executive leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "What are you asking for?" Karoline didn't blink. Not a retraction, not a correction. "I want 5 minutes. Live. On your air." The woman stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "That's not how this works." Karoline stood. "Number. That's how it's going to work. Or I'll walk out this door, and the entire internet will see this data drop, along with the internal emails your subcontractor sent to one of your editors, which I also have." It was silent for a moment. Then, without a word, the executive reached for her phone. Karoline was escorted to a holding room 2 floors below the MSNBC studio level. There was no window, no clock, just a mirror that felt two-way. But she didn't need time cues. She was locked into the rhythm of it now. Her mind replayed each frame of the doctored video. Each moment the fake Karoline uttered phrases she never said. She didn't just want justice, she wanted accountability, with the cameras rolling. At 4:18 p.m., a junior producer entered. "You're going live at 5:02. It's being framed as a special editorial clarification segment." He handed her a rundown sheet. Karoline skimmed it. "No," she said flatly. "This rundown says I'll be interviewed. That's not the agreement. I speak, uninterrupted, for 5 minutes. Then you can spin it however you want." The producer hesitated. "Rachel will be joining remotely. She might want to—" Karoline cut him off. "She'll listen." The producer looked at her like she'd grown horns. He'd seen senators fold in this very building. Cabinet officials had walked out of MSNBC studios looking like ghosts. But this woman, who'd been vilified, deep-faked, and gaslit by one of the most powerful anchors in the country, sat there with fire in her eyes and not a single note in her hand. "Your team should check the mic feed," she said calmly, "because I'm not repeating anything." Upstairs, technicians scrambled. The news cycle had already begun to shift. Whispers were leaking on X and Threads. A known AI researcher had tweeted that Maddow's clip bore clear signs of generative forgery. Screenshots of metadata had begun circulating. Within minutes, hashtags started climbing. $, Maddow manipulated, $, let Karoline speak, $, deepfake, news 5 p.m. hit. The countdown started. Karoline stood behind the curtain of Studio 6A as the segment bumper rolled. "Coming up next," the anchor said solemnly, "a special live appearance from Karoline Leavitt, following the release of footage in last night's broadcast. Stay with us." The light above the camera turned red. The countdown hit 0. Karoline stepped forward. The studio was silent except for the low hum of air conditioning and the shuffle of producers just out of frame. Karoline stood centered under the key light, chin lifted, hands folded loosely in front of her. No teleprompter, no notes, just 5 minutes and a nation watching. She took one breath and began. "I'm not here to shout. I'm not here to accuse. I'm here because last night, on this network, a video was broadcast that showed me saying things I never said, in a voice that was not mine, with a mouth that moved in ways no human speaks." She looked straight into the lens. "I don't care who made it. I care that you aired it." A cutaway camera started to zoom, but she didn't flinch. "Let me be clear. That clip was AI-generated, fabricated. The people behind it knew it. The timestamps didn't match. The voice model had spectral inconsistencies, and the footage contained composite overlays that don't occur in real human expression." Now her voice lifted, not in anger, but resolve. "And for 24 hours, It was retweeted, debated, analyzed by panelists who never questioned its origin, because they wanted it to be true. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small USB stick. This is the original recording of my speech. It's dated, signed, and forensically authenticated. I'm giving it to you now, and to the public, online, where no one can manipulate it. The truth isn't owned by this studio or this host. The truth belongs to the people who heard me say it. In person, without edits. Behind the scenes, Rachel Maddow's video feed flickered on, but stayed muted. She sat frozen, lips pressed into a tight line. The control room had already decided. No interruptions. Karoline turned to camera one. If you believe in journalism, if you believe in freedom of speech, you have a duty to correct what was just done. Not with a tweet, not with a chyron, but by saying the words out loud, we aired something fake, and we apologize. Silence again. And then, she looked straight ahead, and with crystal clarity said, the next time you use AI to silence me, I won't bring proof. I'll bring consequences. The light dimmed. The segment cut to commercial. But the clip didn't stay there. Within minutes, it exploded online. By the time the commercial break ended, the damage was already done. Only this time, not to Karoline. The clip of her statement was ripped and reposted across X, YouTube, and Rumble before MSNBC could upload the official version. Independent accounts added watermarks. Commentary channels were reacting in real time. One popular creator titled it, Karoline just destroyed AI propaganda in under 5 minutes. Back at MSNBC, the control room was in chaos. Rachel Maddow's team demanded she be allowed to respond live. Producers whispered urgently in headsets. Legal called up to warn that any further denial could open the network to defamation suits, not just from Karoline, but from the public figures misquoted using fake Karoline audio. But Karoline wasn't waiting for apologies. As soon as she exited the studio, she stepped onto the sidewalk and pulled out her phone. With one swipe, she posted a single sentence alongside the link to the raw footage. Here's the real clip. Don't let them decide what you heard. The post went viral within minutes. Elon Musk himself reposted it with a single word. Chilling. Meanwhile, the AI researcher who had initially flagged the fake video published a 12-point breakdown of how the footage was manipulated. His thread ended with, "This isn't just about Karoline. This is about all of us." If deepfakes can shape national discourse, journalism as we know it is on life support. Suddenly, the story wasn't just political, it was existential. CNN panelists, who had initially laughed off the clip, began walking back their comments. The New York Times published a developing piece acknowledging concerns over AI-manipulated footage. Even NPR, usually slow to touch viral stories, ran a headline, "Did AI just cross the line? The Karoline Leavitt scandal." Meanwhile, Rachel Maddow's silence began to speak volumes. She had every opportunity to go live and respond, but she didn't, because she knew the moment she spoke, Karoline's final words would echo louder. And across the country, even her critics began to ask, if they can fake her, who's next? The invitation had the tone of professionalism, but the subtext screamed ambush. Rachel Maddow would like to offer Karoline Leavitt a segment to address the recent controversy. Karoline read the email twice. Her team exchanged wary glances. One aide whispered, "They're trying to clean this up without admitting fault. They want to control the narrative before it spirals." Karoline closed the laptop slowly. "Then let's make sure we write the ending. It was a trap, but it was also a stage, and Karoline had no intention of walking in blind. She didn't fly to New York quietly. In the 2 days before the segment, she worked with data analysts, video forensics experts, and digital ethics scholars to map out exactly what had been done to her. The AI-generated smear clip had mimicked her tone, expressions, and even vocal pauses. But it had missed one crucial detail. She had never been in the room the video claimed she was in. She had never uttered a word of what the deepfake said. And now, she had the receipts. Studio 6H was ice cold when she arrived, its silence broken only by the low buzz of production assistants scrambling to reset cameras and lights. Karoline was ushered into the makeup chair, and the tech clipped a mic onto her blazer. Her blazer today wasn't accidental. Forest green, sleek, symbolic. A color she wore during the real event in Columbus. Just one of many verifiable timestamps that proved her case. Across from her sat Rachel Maddow, composed, smile tight, binder resting on the table like a gavel. The stage lights brightened. The countdown started. Rachel led with composure. Karoline Levitt, welcome. Let's address the elephant in the room. Millions have viewed a clip of you making disturbing claims. You've said it's fake. Why should the public believe your word over the footage? Karoline didn't blink. She placed a black folder on the table, opened it with precision, and began pulling out documents. Here's my flight itinerary. Columbus to DC, dated and ticketed. Here's video from that very day. Public town hall footage. Different clothes, different setting. And here, she slid over a USB stick, is the code used to create your viral clip. Rachel's eyebrows arched slightly, her smile thinning. I had someone replicate your voice, Karoline said. Want to hear yourself call your own journalism a staged illusion? It's that easy now. But that's the problem, isn't it? And then she added slowly, deliberately, you used a fake to silence the truth. I came to restore it, with facts, not fear. Rachel Maddow was no amateur. She didn't flinch easily, not even under pressure. But something shifted in her eyes when Karoline laid down the USB drive. Her usual rhythm, tight, practiced, methodical, stuttered ever so slightly. The studio didn't catch it, but America did. Karoline didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She just waited. And then, without warning, Rachel turned to her producer off camera and whispered, "Can we verify this?" Now, a pause. The screen behind them lit up as the production team pulled the file from the drive. It displayed side-by-side frames, one showing the viral clip that had been passed around every corner of the internet, and the other showing the real footage from the Columbus Town Hall, unfiltered, unaltered, time-stamped, raw. The difference was undeniable. The AI smear showed Karoline speaking in an empty congressional chamber, making statements she never made, about race, elections, even national security. But the real clip had her standing in a community center, answering questions from working-class voters, discussing supply chains and family budgets. Same face, same voice, but the truth was now unmistakable. Karoline leaned forward. Her tone dropped to a whisper, yet every word struck like a gavel. I'm not here to score points. I'm here because you, Rachel, you platformed something generated by an algorithm pretending to be me. You aired it. You speculated on it. You called me dangerous based on software. Rachel opened her mouth, but Karoline held up one hand. No one stopped to ask whether it was real. No one verified. And now I have high school girls in Idaho emailing me, asking if I really said what that clip claims. There was a silence in the studio that wasn't just audio. It was moral. Rachel finally broke it. This may have crossed a line. Karoline didn't blink. The line's been gone for a while. You just finally noticed. The crew behind the glass scrambled. They weren't sure if this was the kind of segment you finish, or cut to commercial. But Karoline made it easy for them. She turned to the camera, not to Rachel. If you've ever wondered what misinformation looks like, this is it. Not just in the pixels, but in the platforms that let it spread. She stood up. The producers signaled wildly. The director whispered, "Do not cut." But it was too late. Karoline had taken the moment and reshaped it into a reckoning. As Karoline stepped off the set, the energy didn't just linger. It detonated. Within 30 seconds of the segment ending, the control room was chaos. Producers were yelling over comms, interns scrambling to flag external feeds, and Rachel Maddow herself remained seated in stunned silence, staring at the frozen split screen on the monitor, AI versus authenticity. But Karoline wasn't waiting around to bask in the fallout. Her team had already clipped the exact 2-minute exchange and uploaded it to every platform that mattered: Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, even Rumble. The caption was simple, stark, and devastating. They used AI to smear me. Here's the real clip. It spread like wildfire. Within 15 minutes, Number Karoline was right was trending above number Maddow Monday. Memes, remixes, breakdowns. Social media turned her truth into a weapon, not just against Rachel, but against the entire media apparatus that had rushed to judgment without evidence. Even independent journalists who normally avoided conservative voices had to admit, this is what a factual takedown looks like. Meanwhile, inside MSNBC headquarters, legal advisors were already in a huddle. Questions of liability swirled. Was the network responsible for platforming AI-manipulated content? Could Karoline sue? Would she? The irony was sharp. The network that prided itself on truth in journalism had become the very cautionary tale it used to warn others about. And the woman they'd tried to discredit, dismissed as a political intern turned fringe commentator, had walked into their den, exposed their blind spots, and walked out with receipts and credibility. Karoline, meanwhile, was calm. In the car ride back, she looked out the window, watching as the notifications on her phone stacked by the hundreds. Her communications director, eyes wide, whispered, "This wasn't just a good moment. This was a realignment." Karoline replied without turning her head, "This wasn't for me. It was for anyone who's ever been told that clip speaks for itself when it didn't." Back at MSNBC, Rachel finally broke her silence. She leaned forward, cleared her throat, and muttered off camera, "Book her for next week, if she'll come back." The producer shook his head. She already booked herself. The whole country's listening now. By sunrise, every major outlet, left, right, and centrist, had picked it up. Karoline Leavitt exposes AI smear live on MSNBC. It wasn't just a headline, it was a reckoning. The clip had surpassed 10 million views across platforms and rising. Political commentators scrambled to reframe their earlier takes. Some deleted tweets, others issued hesitant apologies, but Karoline didn't wait for validation. She already had the only proof she needed, the truth, in her own voice. On Capitol Hill, things moved faster than expected. Senator Josh Hawley called for an emergency hearing on AI misinformation. Tulsi Gabbard demanded a bipartisan investigation into synthetic political content. Even traditionally liberal voices like Bill Maher and Joe Rogan weighed in, siding with Karoline not because of politics, but because she had done what few ever could, walk into hostile territory and win on merit. Meanwhile, Karoline received a message that made her pause. It was from a CNN producer. "We reviewed the raw feed. You were right. Would you consider coming on next week? Unedited, full platform?" Karoline forwarded it to her team with a simple response. Let them wait. That same afternoon, she published a 90-second video, filmed from her phone, unfiltered, standing outside the Lincoln Memorial. In it, she addressed not just her followers, but the nation. "They say politics is theater. That's fine. But I'm not here to audition. I'm here because too many people don't have a mic. Because truth shouldn't need a trending hashtag to be heard. And if they come at me again, AI or otherwise, I'll do the same thing I did last night, press play, and let America decide." By the time the video ended, the crowd behind her, dozens who had recognized her mid-filming, burst into spontaneous applause. She turned, smiled, and walked away. Behind her, carved in stone, Lincoln's words, "That government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth." For once, the quote didn't feel like history. It felt like prophecy. And Karoline Leavitt? She wasn't just part of the conversation anymore. She was the spark. They tried to erase her with code. They thought one fake clip could silence her. But Karoline didn't break. She didn't blink. She brought receipts. She brought the real footage. And with one calm voice, she exposed the truth, not just for herself, but for every American who still believes facts matter more than filters. In a world spinning with distortion, she stood still. This wasn't about politics. This was about reality. And Karoline Leavitt made sure we remembered the difference. One truth, one voice, one clip that changed everything. One clip.